Hello, and welcome to A VO's Journey. My name is Anthony Pica. This show is all about helping the new and upcoming voiceover artists grow their business, sidestep all the crazy things that I seem to step on. Today is May 10th. Super excited. It's a Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, and we're almost halfway through May. And, right, we've got Mother's Day coming up, so that's really super exciting. Today I want to talk to you about a small portion of the question that I get asked more than any question. So we have a VO's Journey Facebook group, and everybody who joins our group, is free to join over there. We ask them to give us their most pressing question, and by far, 75 to 80% of everybody who joins, their question is, how do I get started? And it's I think it goes to show too how exciting it is that there's so many new people coming into the industry, and that's just fueling a lot of growth. I think I've talked about how to get started a lot, but I think that it's so much more than one video for a couple of minutes can discuss. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to do a couple videos, but this video we're going to really focus on what you need to do to get your studio set up. Okay, because in the end, how to get started, that's a big question, right? Because you've got your studio, you've got your equipment, you've got your sound, then you have your recording, right? You've got to be able to record. So you have your acting, you have your editing, your DAW, you've got to learn how to create a professional sounding file. Then from there, right, then we get into the marketing aspect, and then we get into the business aspect. There's so much to cover on, where do I start? What do I do to get started? But I think the number one thing, when I work with people, because I have a mentorship program too, where I work with students one-on-one with them every week. And, usually when I'm, the very first thing I do with someone who's just starting, right, is that we have to pick somewhere, right, to actually record. We've got to pick our space, and we've got to talk about what's needed to put in your space. Because before we dive into equipment and all of those things, the number one thing to consider is where you're going to record and what you need to put up in order to make your sound the very best. Because no matter what microphone you have, whether it's a $40 microphone like I started with, Blue Snowball mic, or it's a $5,000 microphone, right? Which, the the one I currently have, it differs very little when it comes to your space. Meaning, that's what makes the biggest difference in the world. Doesn't matter it does matter what microphone you have, but what I'm trying to say is that without your space being treated the best that it could be, even a great microphone is not going to, the sound is not going to be that great, because you're going to pick up too much room reflection. It's just not going to turn out okay. All right. So I think at this point, it's important to talk about what exactly you're going to be putting into your space. Real quick, before we get started with that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Also, make sure you check out A VO's Journey Elite Academy. We have the link below. This is what I talk about, and all of our other coaches every single week. We've got live classes, courses, a great community. If you're looking to start and grow your voiceover business and you're trying to get started, that's or you're up and running and you like to join us and be a part of Academy Voices too, which is our online casting website. Check that out. Love to have you. There's a link below to get started, and we'd love to see you. Okay, so let's dive back into, got that little spot out of the way there. Let's dive back into what we're talking about, and that is your space. So when I first started, okay, and some of the easiest things to do is you want to find a space, typically, that you can record in that's a little small, that's a small enclosed space. And the reason why, okay, is just because typically a smaller space is going to be a lot easier for you to treat, like a closet or, a small office space or bedroom, or, you can create your own space. Okay. So like what I did, okay, is I had closets in my first home that I started my voiceover business in, but they weren't closets that I could actually get into. You know what I mean? They were just enough for you to put your clothes in, and that was it. You couldn't really, there weren't walk-in closets or anything. So I created what I called a hobo fort. The name, I didn't come up with the name until after I'd created it. My family started calling it, always going into his hobo fort. But basically what it was is I went to Lowe's and I bought some PVC pipe, and some elbows, to connect them, and then packing blankets with some plastic clamps. And that's what I did. I put that up every night. I just made an enclosure around my desk that had my computer on it, where I'd hooked up my microphone and everything. And that's what I did, and the door, I just pulled the blanket back, got in, let it go, and that's where I was, for a couple of years, my hobo fort. So I use packing blankets and PVC pipe to create that structure, that booth, if you will. But it's a lot easier to, well, that's very simple. But a lot of times if you don't have a space for that to stay up, you have to take it down. So like I had to put it up and take it down every single night. At about 10 p.m. I'd go out to my little outdoor storage shed. I had a big duffel bag, and that's what I had all this stuff in. And I would bring it in, put it up, and take it down. I look at that now, I think, good gosh, because it took me about 15, 20 minutes to put it up and take it down when I got really good at it. So, because this was like it ended up being like a 4x6 by 7 feet or so booth. That was just completely covered from top to sides, everything with packing blankets. So it wasn't hard to put up. It just took a lot. So anyways, and then I would go in and I would sit down at my desk, and that was it. But in a closet, that's really nice too, because you can utilize clothes. You can utilize things like, you can see on my wall. What's my point? What's that? Yeah. You can see on the wall back there the green and black pieces of foam. Okay, and those are ridged, which are really nice. They come in all kinds of things. You can get them from Amazon. Those work well for higher frequencies, but they are usually typically not enough. You need more treatment in a space. So I'm just talking about bare minimums here. So clothes, pillows, blankets, these things work wonderful. All right. Like when I was trying to get more blankets, fortunately my wife is she loves blankets and pillows and stuff. So we had a lot, but then I could also go to like a thrift store somewhere and find, just blankets, pillows, things like that were cheap, that I could just put in put in the corners, hang on the wall, on the walls, hang over my hobo fort, whatever I could do to make it thick as possible. Right. I like to stay between 3 to 4 inches thick of material. So if you think about it, a packing blanket is probably about that thick, so it's not very thick. So like we're talking, you need to have a decent amount of thickness. Now that's really, if you're in a booth, that's a lot. You know what I mean? And I know that, like if you're in a closet and it's tight, but it's really important for you to have that reflection control or acoustical treatment, because when you get in there to record and you use your microphone, you're going to get like the thing that you don't want is a lot of reflection, booming sounds. You're going to get, if you don't have the right treatment in your space, if it's not thick enough of material, all right, then it's going to cause trouble. Now, usually deeper voices need more treatment. Okay, they need up to that 4 inches because it's harder to trap lower frequencies. But higher frequencies don't need as thick treatment. But so 2 to 4 inches in between there, 2 on the light end, 4 on the heavy end. Now, as I built my own booth, like my studio is in there, right? As you can see, I have my studio in there, and I have 4 inches of rock wool. Okay, and that insulation, you can also use Owens Corning, that's really good, but 4 inches thick of that. And then on top of that, I have bass traps. I have nice fluffy carpet on the floor with a nice cushion underneath, because that cushion underneath is really helpful. And then I have also, for aesthetic and a little more acoustical treatment, some of these foam panels in there as well. But I have a lot of bass traps in there. So when I go in there, I don't have any issues with my reflection and my sound. And that's really, so when you go to set up your space, right, you've got to think of a couple things too. So we're talking about, acoustical treatment and everything. But remember, when you're facing forward and you're speaking, okay, usually typically we face forward and we speak and we have a screen. Right, and that screen is, you're going to reflect off of that screen, and you're going to get reflection that's going to bounce, and that's so. But it's important to think that whatever's in front of you, so this is your screen, but up here and like in front of you, up there, all of the sides, all this, but that needs to be heavily treated, right? And then directly behind you needs to be heavily treated. Now, your entire space, top to bottom, should be heavily treated, but these are two spaces, right, where it's going to be bouncing, that you want to make sure that it's treated, especially too, like right on the sides of you. Also, another thing that's funny is when I first got my whisper room, when I first got the first whisper room I had, I did this treatment, but I went in there and I sat down because I made this. When I first did my whisper room, I didn't stand up. I wanted to try to make it to where I could sit down like I had before. And because after my hobo fort, when the business exploded and it grew after a couple years, and I was able to buy a new house and I got a whisper room, that was not this house but another house, and I sat down, and when I sat down in my whisper room, it was like totally different sound than when I stood up. And I realized that's because the treatment that I had put at that level, right below, was not the same as it was as I was speaking up here. Okay, plus I had all this reflective stuff in there that I was sitting in front of. So you have to think about that, right? And that, when you're speaking, things are bouncing around. So it's really, really, really important to have as much treatment you can in front of you, behind you, yes, on the sides. If you have hardwood, you need to put some sort of carpet down, something down that's going to dampen, absorb some of those frequencies. Now, remember, this acoustical treatment is not about making it quieter. It's just making it so that the frequencies aren't bouncing around. Does that make sense? So I don't want you to mistake acoustical treatment for, sound treatment, all right, or sound dampening, because that's something different. To dampen sound, you have to think that there's going to be all sorts of things you have to do, like you're trying to eliminate basically air moving through things. Okay, so that's why, like, walls. One good thing too, if you have noise, and I had done this in my last house, was that there was a lot of gaps and things in places, and noise travels through gaps, right? I mean, that's what the noise travels through gaps. So, and windows, things like that. I just went to Lowe's and I got some of the Weatherstripping, and you can put it along your door, you can do all kinds of stuff with the Weatherstripping, and that's very helpful. I mean, it's just every little bit helps, to fill in gaps and things around doors and windows. But anyways, the treatment aspect, the acoustical treatment is everything. So again, let me go over some things that you can use. Blankets, pillows, clothes. They work amazing. You want to go into your booth and clap, all right, and not get anything. So you hear that, you can hear there's an echo. I've got my doors open. Remember, this is just my editing station. It's not my recording space. My recording space is in there. It's fully treated, booth that I built. But you can see it's open back there, and you can hear that clap. If you go into your space and you clap, it should be completely dead. You shouldn't hear an echo at all. Okay? You should go in there and instantly hear, like, just your voice just being sucked into the walls. Like, it should not feel like there's any of that noise. And then when you go to record, right, you'll be able to hear something. Because the microphone picks up, your ears, we hear it through our head as well. It's interesting because we hear the resonation. It's not like, that's why when we listen to our voice, it sounds so weird to us in the headphones, because we don't typically hear our voice that way. We hear it resonating through our head, not from an outside source like we hear someone else. So when the mic picks it up, it's going to sound different to you, and that's why a lot of people are like, oh, I hate the sound of my voice. So you're just not used to it sounding like that. And on top of that, it'll also pick up where you have problematic frequencies. We're not getting into EQ in this, but I'm saying because the space itself, and I'll end with this because I know I've been talking for a while, The space itself is so important. Like, that's the foundation of everything you build on. And if that foundation is not solid, all right, meaning you don't have really good acoustical treatment, you don't have enough acoustical treatment, then everything else from there, the equipment you get, the software you use, the EQ, like the whole, your whole chain of processing, your audio in general will be it'll just always be, teetering on disaster, because you're trying to fix the foundational problem, which is your treatment. So the treatment should always be your number one thing that you focus on, especially first. Or if you're having issues, yes, better microphones do help with things here or there. But in the end, having a really super expensive microphone in a poorly treated space just means that you're going to amplify that poorly treated space a lot more. Right? I mean, so that's where I'm saying it's the foundation of everything. All right, I hope that this video helped and got you thinking. So again, those things, pillows, blankets, clothing, those things work wonderful. There's all kinds of other things. I mean, I've seen people use corkboard. I've seen things that absorb sound. All right. And which that, so those are the corkboards can be expensive though. But then also insulation, I use insulation, and then of course foam. These types of foam panels are really cheap. When they get thicker, like 3 inches, 4 inches, which is really awesome, but that's just, they're super expensive. They become expensive because you need a lot in bulk. But you can get the foam, bass traps, things like you can see, like this is like one of those things that goes into a corner. You know what I mean? And it goes upside like the corner of your wall. It's really great. Things like this. I have so many of these things, plus big bass traps. Actually, back there, you see where my "Don't Tread on Me" sign is, and you like my Sweetwater sticker on that. But behind, actually, that's attached to, and that's a bass trap. A big bass trap that's in the corner there, that black square or rectangle there, that's a bass trap. And just anything that you can do, but and even in the space that I edit in, I like to have it treated some, because when I'm talking to you guys or when I'm listening back to my audio, it's important as well. I don't have all of my equipment, my speakers, my computer, my editing stuff is all outside of my booth. When I first started, I had everything inside my booth, and what I found was it made noise. Now, there's so much more things today. Like if you have a computer that has a solid state core to it, or you have things where they're not making noise, that's fine. But I found like a lot of the stuff, even monitors, if you're not using headphones, monitors, I use powered monitors. Most of us do. We're not in a live space where we're using, preamps to power these things. We're using powered monitors, which means powered speakers, which means they're going to hum. Even a little bit of a hum, they're going to hum because they're powered. And there's just, so like all those things when you're really trying to get a quiet sound and stuff like that. So that's why I had learned over time that I switch, but not everybody can do that. And that's okay. You can still have your stuff in your booth, from a noise standpoint, but just remember, just think about all these things. But in the end, get as much treatment as you can. That's your foundation. Once you have that, then we can build on the rest of starting to record and getting the best sound and equipment and things like that. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. Please make sure, again, you hit that like and subscribe button and check out Avio's Journey Elite Academy. We'd love to have you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.